You're rocking with the best. Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a great show for you today. First and foremost, let's talk about the latest with the Proud Boys and how one of its leaders got hit with a sentence that's harsher than any other person that was involved in the January 6th insurrection. We'll talk a little bit about that. Also, we're going to be celebrating HBCU week that's happening next week. We're going to talk about how a public service station is doing its part to show the importance and values of our HBCUs. We'll check in about that. And then later for the big culture conversation here's the question, folks. Are our aging political leaders good for America? We're going to talk about this in light of the latest episode of Freezing from Senator Mitch McConnell. We'll also talk about Senator Dianne Feinstein and the ongoing conversation about President Joe Biden. We'll have that part of the conversation. So, folks, we got a lot to talk about. Make sure y'all stick around. Jump in the chat with us right now as we're streaming live on YouTube. Jump in under Roland Martin's YouTube page, and let's get it in. It's the culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in, and happy Thursday. There we go. Happy Thursday, folks. We got a lot to talk about, so I just want to jump right in. But before I do so, I got to make sure that I do a little roll call with my online culture crew that's checking in. If you could be a part of the culture crew for today, just go to our page on YouTube under Roland Martin and jump into the discussion, because we would love to hear what you have to say. And I got folks checking in from all across the country and even some parts of the globe that is tuning in for today's show. Big shout out to Culture Crew members, Lori Parks. Lori, good afternoon. The Block Church members meeting present. Lori, I love it. Appreciate you. Mike V, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Tiana, good afternoon. Hey, Tiana. Good to connect with you once again. Jacqueline Botang. Good to see you, my sister. Hello, family. Cindy D, you're checking in. Hello, Cindy. Good to connect with you. Miss Pauline, checking in all the way from Cleveland. Thank you so much. Janelle Fields, I know you're going to be dropping some jewels and some facts for us, Janelle, so today. So I'm looking forward to the conversation. conversation, especially this one for this big culture convo we're going to have later on in the discussion in the show. We got one of our brand new culture crew members. She loved the show yesterday. She was like, I am going to check in each and every day. My sister Karen Colger Esquire. Karen, good to connect with you once again. Hey, hey, hey. Pastor Damon Blissett is in the building, y'all. Y'all know how Pastor does. Hey, King and Queens. Hey, Pastor Damon. Thank you so much for checking in. Conscious Thought, good afternoon, dear brother. Thank you so much for checking in as always. Folks, again, we are streaming live right now on YouTube. We're streaming live on Facebook. Of course, we're streaming live on blackstarnetwork.com, our home website, and of course on Amazon News, on your Fire TV, Plex TV. You can find us streaming all of those places, except for the social media. But for Black Star Network, Amazon News, Plex TV, you can find us streaming there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we certainly thank you for your support. All right, folks, let's jump right into these conversations. First and foremost, let's talk about what's going on with the Proud Boys. There has been another major development in this situation with the Proud Boys. As of course you know, the Proud Boys are one of the alt-right groups that have supported former President Donald Trump, and they were very present. Speaking of being present, Lori, they were very present on January the 6th. Some folks would even go as far as to say they helped to organize that situation on January 6th. Well, it looks like another leader of the group has been sentenced. This time, this is not a small sentence. He's been sentenced to 17 years in the January 6th case. I'm talking about Proud Boys leader Joe Biggs there. There's a picture of Joe. He's one of the leaders of the Proud Boys, the far-right organization that has come to the forefront of the conversation about domestic terrorism, the forefront about white hatred. And he's been sentenced to 17 years. This is among the longest sentence handed down yet for a convicted rioter. So he is in a special class. He was convicted by a Washington, D.C. jury with several charges, including seditious conspiracy for attempting to forcibly prevent the peaceful transfer of power. When we're talking about from then President Donald Trump to Joe Biden after the 2020 election. According to District Judge Timothy Kelly, he said, in handing down the sentence, he said, quote, "Our Constitution and laws give you so many important rights that Americans have fought and died for, and that you yourself put on a uniform to defend. People around the world would give anything for these rights." He said, but on January the 6th, he said, "You broke our tradition of the peaceful transferring of power in the United States. The nature of the constitutional moment we were in that day is something that is so sensitive that it deserves a significant sentence." All right, crew, tell me your thoughts on this. Big sentence being handed down to Proud Boys leader Joe Biggs, 17 years for his involvement of January the 6th. Now, I had to kind of do some research on this a little bit. Do you know that there were over 1,000 people that have been arrested for January the 6th? And I know we don't talk about that number too much because I know that some of us tend to believe like, oh, nothing really happened, quote unquote, these white men and these white women, people were actually arrested. We don't talk about it as much, but trust and believe, people have been arrested, lives have been uprooted, sentences has been handed down from judges across the country. But more importantly, the Department of Justice has been doing some serious work to hold a number of individuals accountable to what happened on January the 6th. So, just the simple fact that we are in this place that we're seeing some level of accountability, some level of consequence, some level of punishment is speaks volumes. And it's very, very interesting. Cindy, you checked in, Cindy D. You said more of those sentences should have been harder. Many of them got slapped on the wrist. Well, yeah, they did. But some of them really lost their livelihoods, jobs. Of course, we know that some of those who were on the Capitol actually worked in government. Some of them were either staff members in federal government, or they were the government officials in their respective states. Some of them were elected leaders, or candidates that that were running for office. I mean, it was a crazy mix-up of folks. But you're right. Harsher sentences should be handled, especially considering the as Judge Kelly said, the sensitive nature, the significant part of trying to disrupt that transfer of power. And that one charge. I want to go back to this charge very quickly. Then we're going to take our first pause. But that one charge, seditious conspiracy for attempting to forcibly prevent the peaceful transfer of power. Now, I don't know if they're going to, when former President Trump, when he gets on trial, I don't know if this is going to be one of the charges, especially in any of his indictments, but it speaks volumes. It speaks volumes about where we are with things. So that is certainly is something very, very serious. So again, folks, this Proud Boy leader, y'all remember Enrique Tarrio, he was sentenced as well, another leader from the Proud Boys. But this one has gotten among the longest sentences handed down to a rioter since the January 6th situation. So we should expect more. It's like you said, Cindy, and we will certainly keep our eyes on the situation. All right, folks, look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's switch gears. Let's talk about historically Black colleges and universities. I'm talking about our HBCUs. Next week is a special week as we talk about celebrating the diversity, celebrating HBCUs, and much more importantly, what is going to be the future of HBCUs in this country. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Stay with me. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in. In a few moments, we're going to be talking a little bit about HBCUs, as next week is considered to be HBCU week. As we know, schools, colleges, universities, all back in session around the country now. And so this is going to be a celebration of the diversity of HBCUs, the significance, the value of HBCUs. So I'm so happy to have that conversation in a quick moment. But I know there are a couple of folks that are checking in. Some of our culture crew members are checking in about what we just briefly reported on as it related to Proud Boys leader Joe Biggs. And someone mentioned 17 years. John, you mentioned 17 years is far too much time. And I want to say that, is it really too much time considering the magnitude, the gravity, the seriousness of the situation? Considering the fact that, if that attempt was successful, where would we be today? If the attempt on the lives of all of those individuals, Republicans and Democrats, were successful, where would we be today? They literally tried to overthrow the government and kill people in the process. And, I don't personally think that we talk enough about it. I mean, I think that just in our culture, we kind of just sweep things kind of under the rug a little bit and kind of just say, all right, just move on, and think that everyone should come back to a kumbaya moment. But what we saw on January 6, 2021 was a very serious situation that should not be sugarcoated, nor should it be something that just relegated to, oh, okay, tourists traveling to the Capitol. You try to overthrow the government. The last time we've seen something of that magnitude was over 100 years ago. And we talk about those things, that type of action, political action from other countries, you know what I mean? We talk about it in the Middle East, in Africa, and other parts of the world, when we say, oh, the United States had to intervene militarily because the president of this group, the prime minister of this country, the leader of that country, there was an attempted coup in that person's life. So the United States had to step in. We talk about it from that perspective, but that almost happened right here at home. So I don't think that 17 years, if he would have gotten 5 years, you mean to tell me a person who tries to literally overthrow the government and kill people should get less time than a person who sells cannabis, marijuana? I mean, I just don't understand. This person had the intent of, and I'm not just one, but those individuals who were trying to kill people and stop the transfer of power, to at least disrupt some sense of order. And if that was successful, folks, where would we be today? I just wanted to throw that out there, John. I saw your point, your post. And look, I hope you do come back, because we're open to hearing different perspectives, but let's keep it real. Let's keep it real. And going back to what Judge Kelly said, I mean, there are a lot of rights. And the crazy part about this, he served in a uniform. So you are showing this disdain itself and this level of hatred, right? You put on the uniform. That was your choice. Now you want to overthrow the government. And for the 300 million plus people that live in this country, something has to be done. And even as Black America, if that attempt would have been successful, where would we be as Black Americans? Where would we be in this place? To the point where we wouldn't have anything to protect us, quote unquote, right? So this is a very serious thing. I'm glad Judge Kelly kept that in mind. Like, no, this is not, you're not going to just move away. This has, you try to disrupt this. And again, I know how America is. Well, folks, we talk about it. We talk about the oppression, the tyranny. We talk about how, but at the same time, would any of us be truly prepared if that attempt was successful? Would we have really been prepared for that? Would we have been prepared for them to attempt to kill the vice president, hang the Speaker of the House, which was Nancy Pelosi at the time, kill any other person, and then Trump? Would we have been prepared for that? So I just wanted to kind of just take a quick moment to just talk about the gravity of the situation. All right. Look, I'm going to take off another pause. When I come forward, let's talk to Mr. Travis Mitchell as he talks about HBCU week. Folks, stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. All right, let's talk about HBCUs, our historic black colleges and universities. As we know, that school season has once again been is upon us, folks, and schools, colleges, universities, everybody has gone back to school. But this is the perfect opportunity for us to have some different conversations about what we should expect in this year. But more importantly, to keep at the forefront of our minds the importance and value of our HBCU. So I'm so happy to have joining me a brother who understands this and is willing to put the value out there for many people to see. My man Travis Mitchell checking in from Maryland Public Television as he talks about National HBCU Week today and the importance of making sure that our HBCUs are supported. Travis, thank you again for reconnecting with us. Good to see you, brother. How are you today?
Hey, great, man. It's always good to spend some time with you, and you know how very much proud we are of what you're doing and your independent voice. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Brother Travis, let's talk about this National HBCU Week. This is something that some folks may know about and others may not know about. So talk to us. What does this mean? What should we expect over the next week?
Well, let me put it in context for you. The HBC Week celebration was something that was established by the White House, starting with the Carter administration in 1980, and it's typically celebrated after Labor Day. I think the White House has coordinated its national conference on HBCUs to really fall the third week of September. But 4 years ago on MPT at Maryland Public Television, we began dedicating the nation's first week of films and content exclusively dedicated to the HBCU Week experience, from movies and films on history, civil rights, arts, culture, and music, you name it. And so we have expanded that to year 4 on MPT to over 27 primetime hours celebrating the HBCU experience. And today we're proud to announce that through a grant from the Corporation of Public Broadcasting, we are expanding HBCU Week nationally. There is an African American and diverse PBS digital channel called the World Channel. We have partnered with the World Channel, which reaches about 79% of U.S. TV households, to provide 3 films in each Sunday of September at 12 p.m. Those films are inside the CIAA tournament, where we're taking a look at inside the culture of the nation's oldest and most successful HBCU postseason conference, and it is the most financially successful postseason basketball conference, second only probably to the ACC tournament in the country, steeped in history and tradition. And it's right here in Baltimore, so a city in need of an injection of tourism and moving occupancy into the hotels. Baltimore experienced historic highs in occupancy since this conference came to Baltimore from Charlotte, North Carolina. And there's a whole backstory about how people were treated in Charlotte. So CIAA's return to Baltimore after 50 years has been a win-win for the CIAA and the tournament. There's also another film coming on, Afro Blue, about the Howard University Jazz Ensemble, A Day in the Life. And then there is a third program that we're airing on the World Channel called Sounds of the Game. And it's about the history and the culture of HBCU marching bands, featuring Howard University, and a short film on North Carolina A&T State University, the nation's oldest HBCU. So, Farajii, the work that we have put in at MPT, we are now proud to bring to the nation stories about our HBCUs, films about our HBCUs. We're partnering with 3 other PBS affiliates in North Carolina, WHUT-TV, the nation's only HBCU that has a public TV station as a PBS affiliate, and then Louisiana Public Broadcasting. So together, we're going to produce 4 short films about HBCU classics, football classics, and the culture around the A&T, North Carolina A&T and Aggie, called the Aggie Eagle Classic, the A&T North Carolina Central matchup. PBS North Carolina will be producing that. We'll be producing a 7-minute short on Inside the CIAA tournament. Then you have Louisiana Public Broadcasting that's going to produce a short on the Bayou Classic, which is the Grambling Southern Classic that was the first classic, or one of the first classics, to be nationally televised on NBC. And has been going ever since the early 70s. So our goal is to make sure that we publish digital shorts, we flood the public airwaves, and give our HBCUs agency and ownership of their narrative.
I love it. I love it, Brother Travis. I absolutely love it. Talk to us about, and I know you're working in the media broadcasting space. Do you feel like we're talking about HBCUs enough? Now, in Black media, you're a veteran at this, so you know what I mean? We talk about it, but in the mainstream, which is why I love this fact that MPT is partnering with the World Channel to make this message broader. But do you really feel like the rest of America, that not just those not just those states that have HBCUs in it? I'm in the state of California, so do you feel like the majority of the country understand the importance and values of these historic Black colleges and universities?
No, I don't. And I think what tends to happen is, even those of us in the media who we do attempt to cover in Black media HBCU experience, we either steep them in storytelling about their history,
Mm.
or we simply talk about the Battle of the Bands. And so we overly cover HBCUs from an entertainment perspective, but we don't really talk about impact. And so here's something that in the documentary I did called Shaw Rising, one of the students who were part of the founding of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee at Shaw University was able to say, in talking about the contemporary contributions of HBCUs using a historical lens. He said it this way: no Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or no SNCC, no Civil Rights Act, no Voting Rights Act, no Obama. So if HBCU students had not put their lives on the line, on the front lines of fighting public segregation in the Deep South, it was the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee that stayed behind in Alabama and Mississippi and Louisiana. They did the frontline work, North Carolina, on really mobilizing communities so that when the SCLC came to town with Dr. King, the groundwork had already been laid, the mobilization had already happened. And so by the time the SCLC came to town and the cameras rolled in, the world was able to see oppression at its worst in the Deep South. And that turned the tide of worldwide opinion against the Southern states. But it was the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee that spent the time. And so likewise, if you understand that impact and that analogy, likewise, today, HBCUs produce the lion's share per capita of Black STEM graduates in this country, the lion's share of Black doctors, the lion's share of Black lawyers, the lion's share of teachers, so forth and so on. And again, we're talking about in proportion to the percentage of those that they have in the undergraduate ranks who go on to those professional careers. So in the nonprofit space, we simply always talk about question zero. So question zero would be, what happened if HBCUs did not exist? If HBCUs did not exist, you would have had none of the civil rights action that we just mentioned. If HBCUs did not exist, you would not have an upwardly mobile Black professional class in America. If HBCUs did not exist contemporarily, you would not have the numbers of Black scientists, Black STEM majors, Black doctors, Black lawyers, so forth and so on. Now, I find it very interesting that in this age of the rollbacks of affirmative action, what should be the HBCU position on this? And you and I, when I got a chance to visit with you last year, and also the time we spent together when you were in the local market, and we were able to talk openly about the role of HBCUs in general in the context of Black America and America in general. I think what people need to understand is this: the HBCU position on the rollbacks of affirmative action is not one where we're shaking pom-poms and saying, see, all Black students need to come back to HBCUs. That's never been what the HBCU struggle has been all about. HBCUs represent a freedom of choice, a freedom of thought, a freedom to mobilize, a freedom to support, so that Black students anywhere have the ability to go where they choose, to be celebrated, to be treated equitably, to be treated fairly, to have access to the programs of their selection. And so I think it's incumbent upon institutions in the face of rollback of affirmative action policies to really reach out and to validate the fact that their institutions are better when they represent a diverse population. And so this is not a time for a rollback of enrollment of Black students at PWIs in favor of HBCUs. This is a time for those PWIs to demonstrate their support and commitment to people of color by making sure that their recruiting pipeline is even more the full. So if you really want to talk about the HBCU experience, you have to talk about it in the context of the larger Black community.
Absolutely. I love it. Absolutely love it. Brother Travis, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, folks, we're going to continue the conversation with Travis Mitchell from Maryland Public Television as we talk about what MPT is doing in partnership with the World Channel and talking about the stories and celebrating National HBCU Week, which kicks off next week, folks. So starting on September 4th, and all next week on MPT, you'll be able to see special programming, over 27 hours worth of content on their network, dedicated to HBCUs, from everything from the football programs to the academics to the culture. A lot of things are going to be covered, but it also opens the door for us to have some much bigger, broader, and much more fulfilling and realistic conversations about the state of our HBCUs in the country. So look, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let me get a couple of thoughts from you, crew members. And of course, we'll continue the conversation with Brother Travis Mitchell. Stay with me. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland. Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
A lot of stuff that we're not getting, you get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Been checking in with Travis Mitchell from Maryland Public Television as we talk about how MPT, a network based out of Baltimore, based out of Maryland, is working with the World Channel and partnering with other platforms and networks to create, to provide over 27 hours of content to celebrate National HBCU Week, that kicks off starting on Monday, September the 4th. Now, folks, if you heard Brother Travis was talking about some of the landscapes of where we are having these conversations about HBCUs, their value and their importance. And I just want to get a couple of more minutes with Brother Travis about this, but here's the little trailer that has been put out there to talk about the importance and value of this. And Brother Travis, first again, I appreciate you. I always love your insight and your brilliance on this subject. And I feel like we're in such a serious moment. I don't want to make everything a crisis because I hate when it's always crisis, crisis, crisis. But we're just in this very serious moment. I think we're, in a lot of ways, Black America must have a redefined conversation, brother, about how we see our own educational institution. And the redefined conversation, just to the very point that you made, HBCU value is not related to football games, step shows, good feelings, good vibes around being Black folks hanging out with other Black folks. Of course, we know HBCUs are producing, like you said, top quality professionals in vast fields, especially in the fields of mathematics, science, and engineering, and doctors, lawyers, and whatnot. But we have to have a redefined relationship in terms of us supporting our HBCUs, in terms of putting HBCUs in the proper context, because sometimes we go to war with each other. And I ain't talking about Howard University versus Hampton, who's the real HU, but just in terms of understanding that if a Black child chooses a PWI, that doesn't mean that they hate themselves because they didn't go to an HBCU.
Right. I mean, let's dig right into that notion. When I was a student at Morgan State, I think I shared this with you. This is my story. When I got to Morgan, we faced situations where the state of Maryland had historically underfunded Morgan based on its Jim Crow formulas. So even under separate but equal, it had underfunded its flagship statewide HBCU. And after discovering that, I was campus of a student newspaper. Students had recruited me to be a spokesperson for a movement, and we began to prosecute our public case against the state. It wasn't about sit-in or protest against our university president. It was really about taking the argument to the state, which happened to have a very popular Democratic governor at the time. And basically what we realized is that we had to act in the moment. And so there had been a 25-year capital development or campus development plan that had been put in place, but it was not funded by the state. And so we pressed the state to begin to fund that campaign by closing dormitories that should not have been lived in. They were not up to standards, as well as some other facilities on campus. But we also pushed for increased pay for our faculty and for our staff and for our maintenance workers. And it was a collective effort. So we sat in our building for seven days. During the process, the governor wanted to send in the National Guard, and then Baltimore Mayor Kurt Schmoke refused to let him do so. I mean, it was a big thing. It was pre-social media, obviously, but it was a big thing and made national news. But the point that I'm trying to make it was while we were sitting in, that our brothers and sisters from the University of Maryland at College Park, Towson University, brothers and sisters that were on the campuses, the PWI, stood in solidarity with us. And likewise, when they were facing issues of discrimination on their campuses, we stood in solidarity with them. So this whole notion about whether or not you're at an HBCU or a PWI, the reality is we want all Black students to form a united front and to exercise their abilities to think as free individuals, to come up with solutions for our community.
I like it.
Like I said before, HBCUs can be the hub of that conversation, because when you arrive on an HBCU campus, you can speak freely because you're on a campus that is about you, that reflects you, and therefore will support your ideology and your thought process. So all of our campuses should be seen as intellectual thought centers for the development of strategies that advance our people. And to that extent, there should always be connected tissue between students at HBCUs and students at PWIs. I received my graduate degrees from University of Pennsylvania, Wharton, and I did further educational studies at Harvard. But the reality is I'm born and bred an HBCU student, will forever recognize what Morgan State University and Shaw University did for my family and for me. No Morgan, no Shaw, no me. but it doesn't mean that I don't have strong relationships, mentorship relationships, and network relationships with students, both at the undergraduate level and at the graduate level of our PWIs. And here's the final point that I want to make. If we either will stand together or we'll fall together, HBCUs are only as strong as the majority of our students who don't attend HBCUs support us. And likewise, our students at PWIs are only as strong as the 100+ campuses stand in solidarity for their right to go to the schools of their choice. Let's never be confused about this. This is not about an option of being at an HBCU as opposed to a PWI. This is about making sure that the doors remain open for the blood that was shed by students and graduates of HBCUs that could not go to PWIs. You have to make sure that you stay entrenched in those institutions and make sure that the rights of the generations coming behind you, that they too have the right to enter into the institutions of their choice. So it's about protecting the choices that our students have in order for the next generation behind us to be educated in the manner that they choose.
I love it. I love it. I love how you broke that down, Brother Travis. Thank you so much. We got a few moments left. Cindy, you checked in and said HBCUs will always be a part of our overall culture. All can benefit from them. Absolutely, I would agree. Now, Vic Abrams, you said the only people that give a damn about HBCU besides us are athletic scouts. Are you seeing, is that, or do you find it to be true, Brother Travis, that it's only Black folks and athletic scouts that give a damn about HBCUs?
I understand the sentiment, but I don't necessarily think that at this particular moment, the facts will bear out that the scouts are the ones who actually care. I don't think scouts are coming to HBCUs and finding the talent that they used to do in days past. I'm not saying the talent is there. We're just not seeing reflected in the drafts of the major professional sports. I will say that because of the workforce issues, corporations are finding their ways to the campuses of HBCUs because they, matter of factly, just need to have technical talent and talent for their corporate coffers. Where we need to be, though, is we as a people need to show more concern for our HBCUs by investing in them. I mean, we have got to reach origin level givings. We've got to reach faith-based level of giving to make sure that just like this network, just like the Beauty and Black Star Network, it is unapologetically Black owned and it is largely supported by its own people. We need to have a similar model where we can have increase, 1,000-fold increase in what we're giving to our HBCUs in proportional to the type of investment we make in entertainment and in sports. If we're going to take the future of our nation seriously as it relates to the Black community, we need to make sure that our institutions are as strong as they can be. So I am challenging my classmates, not only and those who came up in my generation, not only to watch the programming about HBCUs, but actively invest in your local HBCU. It's vitally important.
Brother Travis, I know we got a couple of minutes left, but I wanted to kind of get your take on two things. And I'm going to ask you to kind of give us your take on these two issues. The first issue is that when HBCUs handle or mishandle student concerns, dorm issues, money issues, any of that stuff, we hear about it front and center. It's major news, right? So how do we have the conversation and how does Black America handle that? That's the first thing. Then the second thing is I saw a piece because of the latest incident down in Jacksonville with the killing of our people down there, how the shooter initially went to an HBCU, changed up and changed up before going on that murderous rampage. That there's real concern about the safety. And this ain't the only thing. There's been bomb threats over the past year and all of those type of things. So first, I know they're two big issues, safety and concerns about our HBCUs, but more importantly, you talked about investments. But when we find out that administrators, presidents of HBCUs have been neglecting students' concerns, how do we reconcile that?
Well,
considering the pride that we do have around these institutions.
You just got to speak truth to power. I mean, the reality is to be a steward as a president of an HBCU means that you have been entrusted with the lives of young people. If you mismanage that opportunity, if you mismanage the moment, then you have to be held accountable by folks in our community. And we can't apologize for that. We can't sweep it under the rug. We have to hold you to to a level of accountability and a standard that we expect. So we should be unapologetic about that, and we should be forthright about that. I'm on the board of Shaw University. I just became the chair of the Morgan State University School of Global Journalism and Communications. I believe, thank you, sir. I believe in, and I'll be calling you. I believe in transparency. I believe in accountability, and I believe you can only build trust when people are able to inspect and investigate before they invest. So I think that's part of it. Then I believe, as it relates to safety, I believe we have to really watch this moment carefully. I think we have to call upon the federal government to protect HBCUs in the rise of the racism and the hate we see in this nation, to protect our young people and protect our campuses. I think that is a very valid request that can be made given the level of threats that have been made against our institutions. The institutions themselves are targets of hate because it's easy to find them. If you want to go to if you're looking to do harm to people of color, then you have 100+ targets that are easy for you to come on those campuses and create all sorts of havoc and chaos. So I think it's important that the federal government respond to protect its citizens. And as we are in this particular moment, we have to make sure that we work collectively together to tamp down the rhetoric that is heating up, to get people stirred up, to take their misguided notions and to take their fear out on the lives of those people that happen to be people of color. I think the dialogue, the rhetoric has to be tamped down, but in the meantime, before there's a leader of character and courage who's willing to face that hate and willing to get people to understand that it is not productive for us as a nation to be divided, we have to protect our institutions. We have to make sure that that the federal government intervenes and works with state and local authorities. And we also simultaneously, you cannot call to account the federal government or state governments for lack of supporting HBCUs, and then you have not managed resources properly. We have to put in a new focus in on accountability and ethics as it relates to our leadership in our HBCUs, and we have to be very transparent with our stakeholder groups in our communities about how we are managing the resources that have come to us.
That is awesome. Brother Travis Mitchell, always a pleasure. Congratulations on the new work roles and the work that you're going to be doing. Once again, talking about this national celebration of our HBCUs, how can folks tune in?
To make it really simple, have your folks go to mpt.org/HBCU. That's mpt.org/HBCU. And you can see our lineup, and then you can follow us with the national announcement of our launch of our new YouTube channel as the first start, which will come later on in this fall. It'll be HBCU Week Now, and it will be our public media YouTube channel.
There it is right there, folks. Over 27 hours of content about various elements about HBCUs, more in-depth discussions and exposure about the importance and value of HBCUs. And as you can hear from Brother Travis, this is a man and his team who are very, very serious to make sure that the story of HBCUs will not be written out of history because of politics, because of emotions. But we got to speak facts. We got to speak truth to power. We need our HBCUs. They deserve to be supported. And guess what? The future of this country depends on it. Brother Travis, I appreciate you, brother. I look forward to reconnecting and talking soon. Thank you for being so good for the culture today.
Thank you, man. Keep doing what you're doing. Proud of you.
Thank you, big brother. Thank you. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's check in and let's talk about something that I think has been in the mindset of a lot of people, which is aging. Aging politicians, are aging politicians good for America, considering what we're seeing with the recent episodes of Senator Mitch McConnell and his freezing? Let's talk about Senator Dianne Feinstein. Let's talk about President Joe Biden. We're going to be checking in with the HBCU grad, my man, brother Sinedu Okorafor, to get the latest on his thoughts on this and a whole lot more. So stay forward, stay with us. On the other side, we still got a lot to talk about in today's edition of The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
A lot of stuff that we're not getting, you get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland. Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Always a pleasure to reconnect with you and talk to you and share with you some of the dynamic ideas that are bubbling in this country. And one of the big ideas is what's happening with our political leadership, as we're finding that there is a very high number of political leaders who are getting older. Essentially getting older, folks. And today for our Big Culture Convo, I wanted to have a discussion about aging political leaders. Are aging political leaders good for America? I want you to join in on this conversation. We're streaming live on blackstarnetwork.com. You can also check us out on Amazon News, on your Fire TV, Plex TV, 24 hours, 7 days a week. But we're streaming live on social media on Facebook and YouTube right now. Just look under Roland Martin's YouTube page and you can jump into the chat. For being a culture crew member today, as we have this big culture convo about aging political leaders. I'm asking the question, is this good for America? Now, you might think, oh, Farajii, this is such an ageist question. And is it really, considering the fact that you have a number of political leaders who are over the age of 60, who have been serving for a very long time in the public space. And guess what? They're showing signs, folks, they are showing signs that they could serve, but they may not have to be on the front lines. They can serve in other capacities. Now, that's the caveat about this conversation. I'm not saying that they should be set out to pasture. It depends on who you're talking about. But if you're talking about a person who still is sharp in the head, they still have innovative ideas, a person that has shown that they can still offer something to the larger conversation, then by all means, I am a whole advocate of what they say in the scriptures: young folks for war, older folks for counsel, elders for counsel. There's nothing wrong with being an elder, but somewhere in our culture, we're finding that it's very, very hard for people to accept the fact that they may not be needed on the front line anymore. I.e., here comes Senator Mitch McConnell. Here's Senator Mitch McConnell, the longest serving senator in Senate history. He has already served 16 years. And when he was recently asked whether he should run or would he be up for re-election, he confirmed, like, yes, I am going to run again, even though over the past, within a 60-day period or so, he has had 2 moments where he has completely froze in the public. He has fallen in the public, and he is showing signs that he's getting older and maybe that his mental faculties are declining. Now I want to bring my brother in, Brother Shinedu Wakorfo, who's a diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist, and he's here to give us some insight on this big conversation. So, Brother Shinedu, thank you for your patience, big bro. How you feeling this afternoon?
I'm feeling great. You know, you got 2 Morgan men going back after
2 Morgan men. 2 Morgan men. That's how we do. That's how we, we gotta, the week gotta be ended like this. So this is awesome. This is awesome. Mm-hmm. All right. So what do you take of this? Like, if we looking at this, I want to throw this up here from Axios, who put this, and I want to put this data up here. Keenan, let's put quote number 2 up for us, please, from Axios. So just to give people some context as to what we're looking at here. Take a look at this, folks. Talking about the congressional leaders. This came out about a month ago, where Axios did a little analysis of the congressional leaders. And they said this: the 118th Congress, this Congress group of folks, this is, let's go back for one. Let's go back. Yep, there we go. Thank you. The 118th Congress is one of the oldest groups of Congress people in U.S. history, and drives debates about fitness for office, term limits, and ageism. The Senate's average age is 64 years old compared to the House's 57. And Congress is nearly half baby boomers, despite the same age group making up 21% of the US population. So that means, folks, that you have more older folks, more baby boomers in Congress than are actually in the society. So that means there's a higher number of folks in Congress that are baby boomers. And while baby boomers are making up a much smaller number of the population. Here's the number. Let's go to the next quote, please, Keenan. Thank you, bro. America's life expectancy has increased in the past century, partially explaining why the average age in Congress has also risen. Since 2000, both the House and Senate have seen a marked increase in average legislator age. Now, if we zoom out on this, the 2 frontrunners in the 2024 presidential contest are the oldest of either party's candidates. President Biden's reelection campaign is aiming to minimize his age, folks. The 80-year-old Democrat now uses shorter stairs, skips socialization when traveling abroad, and has key points written on note cards. Trump, the likely GOP presidential nominee, would be 82 at the end of his second term. He's already facing 4 indictments, and he's in his 80s. Shinedu, what do we make of this? Is this good? Aging political leaders is good for America, bro?
I'm gonna start with speaking about Morgan State University, and I'm gonna move it over.
All right, go ahead. I'm with you on this one because I want to hear your train of thought on this. Go ahead, bro.
I was merely 26 years old when a group of Morgan legends, some of which who were a part of the first civil rights movement done by students at Morgan State with the Reed's Drugstore, So these are people who are old enough to be my parents or my grandparents. They formed a alumni association. And I was their first presiding president, a little 26-year-old me. What did that say? It said that those who fought for me to have a better life are now putting the power in me and the hope in me to make that self-determination of what that better life is. I think the issue here is you have folks in politics who want to hold on to power forever. And I want people to understand it's not a bipartisan thing. Let's not forget, rest her soul, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was showing so many signs of decline, but she had to hold on to dear life just to keep the Supreme Court balanced, if you will. And it asks me a couple of questions, or it makes me ask a couple of questions. One, what have we turned politics into this country? Is it something that somebody owns for decades in their life? What happened to, it's interesting, as a child, and I said this before on this show, I was taught the words of Whitney Houston about believing the children are the future. Well, these children are now adults. I was once those children, and I'm now adult, and so are my colleagues who are also in their 30s and 40s. Did y'all not teach us well? Why are you not letting us lead the way? You know, and that has become my issue. What is this thing? I'm not too old. I'm not too young to carry a machine gun and go to war at age 18. I'm not too young for that. To stand in a country that I've never been and fight and kill to protect the identity of this nation, but to now serve it in another civic duty when it comes to politics, I'm told that I'm too young. What is actually going on in American politics? Mitch McConnell, he looks like he's in pain, but it's as if he cannot stop. And if he cannot stop, why? What is the fear of leaving the country for the next generation who is supposed to take up the mantle in honor, not when you die, but when you've decided that, hey, I've done my work, it's time for the next gen to take over. That is my issue. I'm not an ageist. It's not about if your body is able. But my question is, why? Why not live out your days and enjoy retirement? You've done the work.
I think, and to your point, Brother Sinedu, I would agree. I think there is a number of factors. I think not only is it about just holding power, which I think plays a huge part of it, right? But I think that we also, within our culture, what you do has become who you are. And sometimes when you do something for so long, you can't see yourself past your job title, right? So that's one. But I think the other part of it is people don't want to feel like they failed. If you look at Senator Mitch McConnell, for example, the way the GOP is set up and how the direction that they're going right now, a couple of things has either happened. Either he truly believes that he can, quote unquote, set the party back on track to its roots, whatever that is, right? Or he's trying to salvage his personal legacy of being this guy in the party. I think that for him in particular, he always tries to present himself as being the moral authority, even though his morals are completely warped and distorted, right? You know what I'm saying? When you see him and you talk to him, you get a sense like he knows what the hell he's talking about, but that's not the case. But the point is that we're finding that people are holding on to these things. And this is a trend in a culture I see among even Black leaders. We could say the same thing for some of our Black leaders. And I say some, not all, but some, right? But here's the thing. I think that we have to be very, very intentional about how we are having these conversations, just because, okay, as much as we say an older person needs to get out of the way, step down, set to pasture, does the next generation, and I think to your point that you're making, is the next generation equipped? Do we have the capacity to handle the weight of the work, right? Which I think a lot of these older folks are starting to think. They're like, I would pass it to Sinedu, But for whatever is some reason in their thinking, they're like, he might take this thing and run. You know what I mean? I would pass it to Farajii Muhammad, but whew, you hear his politics on things, and it's like part of this go along to get along. Because you and me, we weren't designed to just allow the system to go along to get along. We were designed from the time we were born, from the struggle that we are enmeshed in, to disrupt. And if you are a person who has put your whole hopes and heart and efforts into keeping a certain system in place, even though, here's the crazy part, even though you know the system is no longer speaking to the interests or speaking to the needs of those who need it most, you're still afraid. You're afraid to let go. You're afraid that the next generation might either take the system, dismantle it, or you're afraid that they're going to take the system and go into a direction that you don't have the ability to take it in. They're going to be seen as the innovator. And I think again, I'm going back to Black folks. That is something that I think a lot of people are afraid to see, man. Like Black folks, Black leaders, we love to, you know, we can't dismiss the fact that at the end of the day, these men and these women who sit in these positions, they have egos, they have certain views of themselves. And for us, that goes completely out the window, bro. That goes completely out the window. I know we got to take another quick pause. I want to talk a little bit more about this because it's not just about Democrats and Republicans, right? There's also the mental health component. There's also the money component. I want us to go into a little bit further. Folks, we're continuing the conversation. Big Culture Convo is we're asking the question, are aging political leaders good for America? And I want to add a little caveat to that question. Is it good for Black America? Are we at a place where, and I'm saying to my older culture crew members, do you feel confident that the next generation, whether they're 30, 20s, but do you feel confident that the next generation will be able to not just get the ball, but they'll run with it and do something with the ball? That's the question. Folks, I want you to join me in the conversation. We're streaming live right now on YouTube under Roland Martin. Post your comments, join us in the culture chat, and stay with us. We still got a lot more to cover here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches. I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
A lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. Man, the chat is jumping right now from conversations about ageism and older political leaders to still talking about what's going on with the state of HBCUs and black students. Folks, join us in the chat each and every day, but you can join us right now on YouTube under Roland Martin, and you're going to be involved in some great heavy topics that are being discussed. Big shout out to my online culture crew, man. We got over 200 and something, nearly 250 people are in the chat right now that are just talking about a number of topics. But the topic at hand, the big culture convo for this moment, is, are aging political leaders good for America? Got my brother Sinedu Wakofor, diversity, equity, inclusion specialist. And I want to get your voices on this today. All right, brother Sinedu, let me bring you back into the frame here because folks are checking in. My sister Janelle Fields, she's always dropping some jewel, but she said that she said there's no bonus given for dying in office. Let those over 65 train and mentor the up and coming. You don't get no awards for that, as Drake said. There ain't no awards for that. Trophies. There ain't no trophies for dying in office, man. That's true. That's real. That's real. Like we think and I see it all the time. And Sinedu, you have been at the brunt of it. I know I certainly have been at the brunt of it in my career, in my time doing social justice work, media work. Man, you feel like you gotta bust down somebody's door just to be seen, heard, and understood. Because people tend to believe that just because you're a certain age, you have a certain ilk, that you don't run in a certain group of people. You know what I'm saying? Like the cliques and stuff that's involved. I hate it all. I hate it all, bro. But I see that, and the reason I hate it is because I see the detrimental impact that has on stopping progress, whether you're talking about for Black people, whether you're talking about for this country in general. There is a real stoppage of talent, new ideas. There's a real stoppage when you don't really fully embrace the next generation. And I'm going back to that question you posed at your remarks. These are the same people that taught us all this stuff. But then it's like, y'all don't have enough faith in us to have this part to run with things. Talk to me about that, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I think about my activism.
Oh, come on.
I remember being in the thick of it in my early years in college. And I remember when I made a conscious decision to not step away, but I saw younger folks coming in and I said, no, it's time for me to if I believe that what I fought for meant something, then I should move to the side in true belief that they will keep up. And whether they do or whether they don't, it is my job, I believe, to advise. And I think that's the problem. People are like, oh yeah, but the world is gonna, they don't know how. Did y'all, whoever just knew it all? Whoever just woke up and just knew it? And one thing I find very interesting about our elders that I respect is, have you forgotten that you were once young when you started this game?
Yeah.
When I look at the pictures of Joseph R. Biden was a youngin when he was out there doing this. Bernie Sanders was a youngin out there marching with Dr. King and so on. So my thing is, if you have so much wealth of knowledge, and I will continue to use this as my example, Barack Hussein Obama is the great example. Get in, do your work, step aside. And if you believed in the work that you did, then that generation coming will hold up the mantle. They will keep the mandate. But I think that's the problem. I don't think folks believe in the next generation in the way that they say when they need to acquire votes. I don't think they believe in us, because if you did, give us room to govern. And let's be clear about nature. Look around the world. If you forget about the exuberance of the youth, they will teach you why youthfulness is a great thing. Look what's happening in Niger and look what's happening in Gabon. If you want to talk about Black folks, those are Black folks who were tired of their leadership, not only because they were old, but they were not focusing on the needs and the innovation of the youth. See, the worst thing to do is to leave the youth without anything to do.
That's true.
And just stagnant. And we've seen it time and time again on the amazing things that these youthful younger people can do. I mean, NASA versus SpaceX. Come on, look at when Zuckerberg came out with Facebook. Our elders couldn't come up with something like that. It was the youthfulness, and that is the beauty of youth. That is the beauty. And I think it is, in my opinion, it is honorable for our elders to understand that, hey, the time of your youthfulness is no longer there. No one is saying that you're not able, but why force yourself to be able when there are new, if you believe it, soldiers of God that are here to continue the story? That's how I look at it.
Hey, brother, let me just say, you're saying something. And here's the thing, in our political system right now, the idea of like term limits seems to be so, like, as much as we could talk about it, I don't know what it is, Brother Sinead. And this is, y'all, I'm being completely honest. I don't understand it. Like, we will say and talk about the fact that somebody is in office for too long. But then when it's time for an election, that older person that has been in office, that incumbent, gets an overwhelming amount of support versus a younger candidate. And it's like, well, where was all that talk before the election? So then we put back the older person. Again, this is not an ageism. I'm just using this as an example that we put back the older person. And then when that older person thinking, their policies, their stances is not in alignment with the changing, evolving rhythm of the state or of the country, then we start wondering, like, well, we need some younger leaders. But then we always go back to the older ones that have the name recognition. We always go back to the older ones who make incremental changes. We always go back to the older ones who go along to get along. And we always go back to the older ones who don't bring the type of innovation and progress that we deserve, especially during a time like this. That's the part. So what's your take on term limits, bro? Because Mitch McConnell, like I said, been in for 16 years. We can go down a number. Biden has been a senator for years. Mm-hmm. For years. Then he went to vice president. Now he's president. Then he's talking about re-election. Mm-hmm. He'll be 86. I think they said 84 or something by the time he leaves the office if he wins re-election. Like, what are we trying to prove here, Mr. President? Mm-hmm. Like you literally, you did it all. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying?
And are you, and at that, let's do numbers, because numbers don't lie, right?
Right.
How are you relating to the majority of your citizenry? Worldwide, the largest number in the citizenry is between ages of about, I think, 12 to 35. In some countries, it's almost projected to be 60, 70%. So when you are that far removed, what are you saying about the closeness that you are to your citizenry that you're, quote unquote, here to serve? There definitely needs to be term limits. And I'm going to tell you why there needs to be term limits. It's a very simple concept, guys. The Constitution is a wonderful document. But you know what I think human beings fail at? How do we change and update things to match the time that we're in? We see this mindset when it comes to the fossil fuel industry. Yes, guys, I understand. That is what built us. But remember, what starts the fire is not what sustains it. We have to be apt to change. And I think term limits are super important because we do need new ideas. We need innovative ideas. And we need this. I think the problem with draining the swamp is folks can live in that swamp forever to the point that their bodies are now changing. When even if you drain the swamp, their influence is so endemic. They don't
Right. Hey, Sinead, listen. Hey, look. Let me add to this because you brought up something for me as you were saying that. If we focus less on personality and put more focus on the ideas, this would be a different conversation. But the American political system is a system that emphasizes the personality of a political leader versus the innovative ideas. Like, it's just like the system is going to continue to go forward. All you're doing is changing out the players. You might have a nuance here, a blip, and a fresher candidate there. But at the end of the day, and I'm not saying this to throw shade on anybody. Think about every president that we've had over the past 30, 40 years in this country, right? They came in speaking of big changes, big ideas. And then over time, they slowly fell into the rhythm of managing the system and not always leading the country or leading the system. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I mean,
and here's my case in point. When President Obama did the Affordable Care Act and people try to say, oh my gosh, the reason that situation was so big because it fundamentally changed America's system of healthcare, right? That you would open up the doors of healthcare and coverage and all of those things. America is still far behind versus other countries in terms of taking care of its people. Now, if that was considered to be revolutionary, see, that's what I'm saying. Like, if we look at the ideas, if we wouldn't have this conversation about ageism, mental health, as long as your ideas are up to date, bro. That's when you know. See what I'm saying? The moment your ideas start to fall into a place of complacency, or your ideas start to just mimic managing things instead of improving things, then you need to leave. I have no problem with a 90-year-old speaking about a revolutionary act because I'm not looking at the 90-year-old. I'm looking at the idea. And that's the place I think that we're looking at. Victory Always, you checked in, you said we need age limits and term limits on all of it, from Supreme Court, senators, and Congress. For now, it is about training the next generation to take the baton. But the training comes in, we're not going to be here forever, but what will be here are good ideas, progressive ideas. And that's, I think, we're slowly, I think the country is going to that. Even Black America, I think Black America is accepting this, but we're so personality driven. So we're thinking that, even case in point, President Obama talked about change, hope, and all of those things. But the reason that it resonated because it was a fresh idea to a stale way of life in this country, especially for Black people. President Obama symbolized the new idea. Like, when we see him, we feel hopeful, we feel refreshed, we feel empowered because he represented to us the new idea. If we take away the personality, emphasize ideas, I think this conversation will be a lot further along. I'm going to take a quick pause. When we come back, more from the crew. Folks, we're asking the question, are aging political leaders good for America? Post your thoughts, share your comments as Brother Sinead, you and I are having this conversation, and stay tuned. Stay tuned for us, man. We got a lot to cover here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
When you go into a barbershop in a 700 credit score neighborhood, black or white, they're talking about their ideas and they're talking about how they're going to move on those things. You go to a barbershop at a 500 credit score, equal brilliance, but bad culture, they're talking about other people. You go to a winner's barbershop, here's what I'm doing. You go to the barbershop of where people feel defeated, they're talking about other people, either celebrities or people they admire, but also often, I don't like Joe. I don't like Roland Martin. Let me tell you something. I don't understand people. How could you not like anything here you see? You should just be like, this is amazing. It's cool. You may not even like how he does it or how I do it, but it's like, you know what? They're succeeding. They're killing it. All you should be is, that's fantastic. But if I don't like me, I'm not gonna like you. If I don't feel good about me, it's hard for me to feel good about you. If I don't respect me, don't expect me to respect you. If I don't love me, I don't have a clue how to love you. And here's the big one. If I don't have a purpose in my life, I'm gonna make your life a living hell.
Folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking about term limits, ageism. We've been talking about mental health capacity. We've been talking about aging political leaders and deciding whether it's really good for America. We know that Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky has had his recent episodes of freezing, showing some sort of decline in his mental and in his mental health. We constantly hear about President Joe Biden, how he stumbles over his words. Now that it's been reported that he gets shorter stares and they have to make adjustments to accommodate the 80-year-old president. We heard about Senator Dianne Feinstein, who was in committee meetings and she kind of lost focus and lost track of where she was. Like, these are major situations that has caused this conversation to be brought to the mainstream. And we're having this conversation because not only does this stuff happening in America, but particularly in Black America, we're finding that there are an older number of folks, and you can decide on who it is and what it is, but there are an older number of Black leaders or those who are in positions of power and influence who just don't want to give up the ghost. And folks, I'm gonna just tell you, this is a personal matter because I've experienced this. And my brother, Sinead, I want to bring him back into the frame. He's experienced this. We're seeing this. And so while we're asking, is this good for America? You got to ask this is good for Black America. Is this good for Black folks that we find ourselves in this situation? All right, let me go back to what some of the crew are saying, Brother Sinead. Benny Hill, you said Farajii Muhammad, don't bring up Jim Crow Joe that way. Obstructionist, Farajii, flat out obstructionist. F that incrementalism stuff. Yes to term limits. Here's the thing. This is something that I learned from social science, Brother Sinead, that we can all talk about big change, but are we prepared for what that entails?
Are we going to do it?
You see what I'm saying? Do you have what it takes? And this is when we had, before you came on, bro, we had a part of the conversation about January the 6th. And I asked the question, if that attempt to disrupt that transfer of power, to overthrow, whether you're talking about killing the vice president, killing somebody, and I know people were killed, but I'm talking about those politicians. They did what those rioters did what they were trying to do. They were trying to kill Mike Pence and hang Nancy Pelosi and all of that stuff. If that would have happened, would we have really been prepared for it? See, that's the thing. We got to be realistic because this is a very, very important time in our country. I think that we're at a crossroads with all of these discussions, and I'm trying to connect the dots here, Brother Shanabu. But I think we're at a crossroads. This whole country is at a crossroads because we either can go one or two ways. Either we can allow things to continue to happen, to go the way they have been going, or as a constituency, an informed citizenry, we can ask ourselves, how can we redefine this space that we're in? Because America doesn't have to quote unquote fall. It can change if the citizens, if Black folks in this country were to see the power that we do have to change it. But it doesn't have to fall. There's a chance, I truly believe there's a slim chance that America can change. But it requires us to not be passive, but to be active in our citizenry. Talk to me, bro.
You ready for me to shake the ground?
Come on, man. That's what we do on the culture. Shake it.
Let's have the conversation. Why is a fall such a bad thing? And I think this is where we can learn so much from nature. Some of the most fertile ground in the world usually shows up after a volcanic eruption. Although that is a destruction to our mindset, it also resets nature. I think nature has its way of continuing its cycle. I think what we're trying to do is to add another spare tire onto a damaged vehicle. And I think the fear of falling, think about it. When you trip, if you were to trip and fall, if you were to just trip and let yourself fall, the fall might be sustainable. But when we trip, what do? We do all of this. We move our hands, sometimes exasperating the fall, making it worse. And I think that's where we are now. We so don't want to fail that we're working in defense. We're doing so much strange things that we're missing the biggest point of all great kingdoms fall. History told us that. But I think we as Americans, and fall is not a crash. Fall could be in many different ways. It could be the fall of level of capitalism, the fall of racism. But we have to be open to it. And to the Blackness of it, I think about when people say that, well, these young kids in our Black community, young kids are not interested anymore in some of these things and their civil rights. Well, where did we go for civil rights once upon a time? It was the church, right? What's the issue with the Black church right now? The Black church, with all due respect, it is not changing with the people that are existing as congregation members. And when you keep that same old ideology, you lose people who want to do those, who share, who are like-minded as you are. And I think that is an overarching thing where you see now, for example, in our community, you want to talk about disunity? If the young Black children and the elder Black children do not have a connection, from warfare, that is an easy group to defeat. Because now, two people who are probably very similar, suffering from some of the similar things, if they're not connected, it's easier to manipulate. And we see that today in our society. So what I say to America is what we need to be focused on is a fall isn't always a bad thing, but there needs to be some level of connection. We need to say, hey, this vehicle of democracy or this vehicle of our country, it is broken. How are we going to build something new and not keep trying to put new brakes and new tires on an 88 Chevy?
Come on, man. I mean, look, and that's the other part about it, right? Because, and that opens up the door, I think, for a much bigger part of the conversation, which is it's okay to let some things fall, right? Because some things needed to fall. Like we can't hold on to these old ideas, this master slave mentality, this old white supremacy idea where white people are above everyone else. You can't hold on to that and then expect us to also talk about, but we need to move forward. Like, we're talking about a fundamental change here. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. But the fundamental change starts with the people. It doesn't start with the political leaders. It starts with the people. What are our values? What do we value? We value the fact that if you are a leader, that you're honest with us, right? If you are a leader, that you do have a vision. If you are a leader, you're not thinking about yourself, that your ego and your personal gain does not supersede the collective gain. These are simple things here. These are simple things. And to the point about the fact of, letting things fall. Well, why are we not letting things fall? Because of fear. The fear of the unknown, right? And the way that you can prepare for, I think, the unknown is try to prepare for the unknown. It's like, are we getting prepared? And I'm saying this to us as Black folks in this country, for Black America. Are we preparing ourselves at this point? We're having all these conversations about the loopholes, the cracks in the American political system. We're having all these conversations about political leadership. We're having all these conversations. We're pointing out that these things are not going to last forever. How do we prepare for it as Black America? All right, let me just take a couple of, let me see if we can get, people are checking in. Karen, my sister, Karen Kosher, Esquire, you said it's definitely time to get rid of lifelong appointments to the Supreme Court. I agree, because as we can see, how a person who believes that they can stay in a position of power for so long, they start abusing the power that they are granted with. And that is a problem. So Karen, I truly appreciate you for bringing that up. And you're absolutely right. Let's see who else we got here. Who else we got here? I'm looking through these comments. Here we go. Here we go. Nicole, you said, is it possible Mitch McConnell is ready to retire and he's doing these things to make us not think of him, but to think of Joe Biden so we won't vote for Joe? That's certainly possible. It's possible, Sinead. Right? It's very possible.
I mean,
but guess what? Guess what? Look how petty that is. Look how petty that is. You can't stand in front of a group of reporters without freezing up. People ask you questions. You are incoherent. You're not sure what's going on. And you worrying about the other party. Like, I can't let them have no power, though. I can't let them reelect. See, that's a disease of the heart, man. That's a real disease of the heart, bro. When your personal ego starts to be the focus instead of, let me fall back a little bit, because the country does a disservice. Let me share with you very quickly. I know we got to wrap up, and then today you'll have the final word on this. Keenan, pull up quote 1 from NBC News. NBC News has been talking about this as well. Again, folks, this is a national conversation that we're having here today. Representative Dean Phillips, who is a Democrat out of Minnesota, a member of the Democratic leadership team who was mulling a potential long shot primary challenge against Biden for 2024, called for term limits after McConnell appeared to freeze up again. He said, quote, "For goodness sake, the family, friends, and staff of Senators Feinstein and McConnell are doing them and our country a tremendous disservice." He posted it on X, the former platform known as Twitter. He said, "It's time for term limits for Congress and the Supreme Court and some basic human decency." Sinead. Let's talk about that just for a moment as we close out. Term limits and just basic consideration, basic human decency. We're doing ourselves a disservice that you have men and women who are hurting physically. Their health is not strong, and they're taking on this work because they refuse. And he's blaming families because they're eating off of this. They riding along with this. Marjorie Taylor Greene mentioned this stuff, talking about, oh my gosh, this is talking about McConnell, even though her and McConnell never been on the same page, but just simply saying, like, what is going on? This country will not make it if we don't insert somebody new, some new ideas, and we get some new advocate of those ideas. Go ahead, Shanita, talk to me, bro.
Oh God, I will never say this again, but she's right. She's right here. And it's very simple. This is what the people want. This is what the people should get. And I think that's why this needs to come up as I don't know if the correct terminology is a referendum, but let there be a vote on it. And I think, with all due respect, folks know how to make this disappear, because I remember hearing this talk in 2016 when we were talking about abolishing the Electoral College. You all have to understand, a lot of these rules that we're following, check this out. Some of the illnesses and ailments that are afflicting some of our older statesmen who are in political positions, some of the diseases that they're suffering from, or sicknesses or whatever, didn't even exist when the Constitution was written. Just to put it in context of how that document, and that has been my biggest issue, the Constitution is not the Bible.
Right.
It is not the Quran. It is none of that. Like, it is a document made by human beings that are flawed. And the one great thing about human ingenuity, our ideas change. On Monday, we want it cold, and on Tuesday, we want it hot. I simply believe that it is time, because what has happened is the lack of term limits has created the disease. If there's one thing I so agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene about, and some Republicans, is their disdain for the swamp that is DC. And that swamp exists because of lack of term limits. People have now manipulated the system so well that it never works in the way that it was intended. And that's where you need a change.
Hey, look, Kathleen Davis, you checked in and said, that's elder abuse. Young people, please run for office. Stop waiting. Let me add a caveat to that, Kathleen, because I'm in agreement. I'm in agreement, but here's the caveat.
Y'all got both of us.
But come on. Black folks vote for young people who run for office.
Thank you.
Yeah, black folks vote for young people who run for office. We praised the two Justins down in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But you know what made that a big deal? Because that's not an anomaly, not the norm. We haven't normalized putting two bright young black men into office. That's an anomaly. That's why there's such a powerful situation there. Because it's not a normal thing. It's not the thing that we do. So yeah, if we young people run it, and it's not just about young people, I'm just talking about people with progressive ideas. If people with progressive ideas run for office, support them. But that's why I said informed citizenry, because it's so easy to be like, oh man, it's so and so. Man, we come from Baltimore, Sinead. And guess what? The name of a politician ranks higher than the ideas of a politician in Baltimore in some cases, right? I know this person. In most cases, I know this person, but we know the ideas of the name?
And can I caveat you one more time?
Talk to me.
And don't only vote them in, vote many of them in, because let me tell you what ends up happening. In a world where there's one Ocasio-Cortez and 50 Pelosi's, she becomes like that one black lady in the company of all white people. She cannot be the savior for everybody. You need many of them. The reason why a lot of them get turned is because only one of them will make it out the group. If not one, two out of hundreds. The majority will win at that point. Which is
absolutely
vote them in droves.
That's it. Down the ballot, as they say, down ballot. That's what you said. All right, we got to go. Our time has been very well spent. A few extra minutes here today. My brother Sinead Wakwa, always love and appreciate you. So thank you so much, bro, for once again providing your insight. And more importantly, thank you for being so good for the culture, brother Sinead. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, folks, look, that's going to do it for us. Look, let's continue the conversation. We certainly will on this platform, but we're going to continue this conversation. Let me just share with you some housekeeping notes now. Of course, we're upon Labor Day this weekend. So over tomorrow and Monday, we're going to be playing some best of episodes of The Culture. So we won't be doing a live show tomorrow and Monday, but God willing, on Tuesday, we will be back live. And I already got some dope guests for you to continue some of the big conversations that we're having across this country. So again, tomorrow and Monday, we won't be doing any live shows, but definitely check in, because even if we don't do live shows, folks, your views help us in the long run, because we're a digital media space. We're a digital media platform. Your views still help. So you say, oh, I've seen this. Turn it on, let it run for a little bit. But we need to get those numbers to make sure that we stay supported on Facebook and on Instagram, Facebook and on YouTube, and make sure that you tell your friends and family and check out the shows, because there is going to be some element of those shows that you may not have missed, have not seen. You might have missed certain conversations. So again, best of The Culture on tomorrow, best of The Culture on Monday, in observance of the holiday weekend, and God willing, we'll be back on Tuesday. All right, I want to thank my brother Sinedu. I want to thank my brother Travis Mitchell for joining me today. I want to thank you, my online culture crew, man. So many of you have been checking in. We got nearly 300 folks in the chat that joined us, all the new voices and all the new comments. Truly appreciate it. There we go. Do your due diligence. Make sure you support us here on Black Star Network. Go to our website today, blackstarnetwork.com, blackstarnetwork.com. Your support means the world to us. It makes all the difference for us. When you give something to support Black Star Network, guess what? What we're going to get you? Unfiltered, important, relevant, timely conversations about things that are happening in our culture that impact Black America. So your support means the world. Go to blackstarnetwork.com, download the app for free on all of your devices, and follow us on social media at Black Star Network. And while you're on social media, make sure you hit me up at Farajii. I'm on Farajii, or it's the real Farajii on Instagram. And you can find me on Twitter, certain Threads, and all of the social media spaces, and we would love to connect with you. All right, that's going to do it for us. Stay tuned, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The big guy himself, Brother Roland Martin, RMU, is coming at you. This is Thursdays. You got my sister Reese. You got my brother, Dr. Carr. Just make sure y'all check out RMU this week, this evening. And as always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. Thank you to my fantastic production team, King Keenan, Joel, Shannon, Maddie, and Chris. Thank you. And most importantly, thank you for tuning in. Stay tuned. More conversations about what's happening in our country and our culture on Roland Martin Unfiltered here on the Black Star Network. God willing, we'll see you on Tuesday. Have a great weekend. Be safe. And of course, come back to see us once again. Talk to you soon. Peace.